tape that shouldn't exist. The box was smaller than she expected. Plain cardboard. No markings except for a smudge of faded ink on the lid. It had been sitting in the back of a dusty storage unit in downtown Los Angeles for decades, forgotten among piles of old furniture and moth-eaten clothes. Anna Clark hesitated before lifting the lid. She had been a personal assistant to some of Hollywood's most famous names, but none of them had haunted her quite like Marilyn Monroe. Anna had been young then, 23, naive, and starstruck. She'd worked for Marilyn during her final 6 months, and she'd been there the night Marilyn died. Inside the box was a single reel-to-reel tape, the kind studios used in the early 60s. On the label, written in Marilyn's unmistakable looping handwriting, were 3 words. "For my eyes." Anna's heart stuttered. She knew that handwriting. She knew that voice. And she knew, without a doubt, that this tape had been recorded in the last hours of Marilyn's life. Flashback. August 4th, 1962, 5:30 p.m., Brentwood, Los Angeles. The California sun bathed Marilyn's Brentwood home in golden light. The sound of ice clinking in a glass drifted from the kitchen. Marilyn sat at her vanity, brushing out her platinum curls. The air smelled faintly of Chanel No. 5. "Anna, darling," Marilyn said, glancing at her assistant through the mirror. "Would you mind picking up more champagne? The good kind, not the cheap stuff they keep sending me." Anna smiled. "Of course. You expecting company?" Marilyn's lips curved into that famous smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Something like that. Back in the present, Anna sat at her kitchen table, the tape between her hands. She should have turned it over to the police, to a museum, to someone, but instead, she carried it to the old Revox player she kept for her own archives. The tape hissed for a moment, and then her voice. Soft, breathless, that unmistakable mix of innocence and seduction. "If you're hearing this, it means I didn't get to say goodbye." Anna froze. "There are things you don't know about me, about that night. And if you do know them, they will tell you not to believe them. But this is my truth." The voice wavered just slightly. Marilyn took a deep breath. "I wasn't supposed to be alone that night, but I was." The rest of the tape dissolved into static. Anna sat back, her mind spinning. She knew what this meant. She'd been there when the police had called it an overdose. She'd heard the whispers of politics, of dangerous affairs, of phone calls from powerful men in Washington. But she had never, not once, heard Marilyn say she hadn't been alone. And now she had a choice: bury this tape forever, or find out who else had been there that night. The woman in the shadows. The hiss of the tape still echoed in Anna's mind long after she pressed stop. She sat at her kitchen table in the dim glow of a single lamp, the reel-to-reel silent now. But its weight felt heavier than any object she had ever held. It wasn't just a recording. It was a time capsule, a voice from the last hours of one of the most photographed women in the world. And it wasn't the voice of Marilyn Monroe the public knew. It was Norma Jean's voice, quieter, steadier, stripped of the coy sparkle she'd mastered for cameras. Anna stared at the words written on the tape's label. "For my eyes." She'd worked for Marilyn long enough to know how guarded she was about her private thoughts. If this tape existed, it meant Marilyn wanted to leave something behind, but only for someone she trusted. And Anna had never been sure she deserved that trust. Flashback, August 4th, 1962, 10:15 a.m., Brentwood. The sun poured into the wide windows of Marilyn's bedroom. The linen curtains danced in the breeze from the open French doors. Marilyn lay in bed, wearing a silk robe, a cigarette burning slowly in an ashtray beside her. Her eyes were half closed, her voice a sleepy murmur. "Anna, do you ever think about what happens if you just disappear?" Anna paused in the doorway, holding the morning mail. "Disappear how?" "Not die. Just vanish. Go somewhere no one knows you. Start again. No lights, no cameras." Marilyn rolled onto her back, staring at the ceiling. "I've been Marilyn for so long. I don't remember what it's like to be me." Anna set the letters on the vanity. "Why are you talking like this?" Marilyn smiled faintly, but it was a sad, private smile. "Because there are people who want Marilyn to keep existing. But maybe Marilyn's tired. She reached for the glass of champagne on her nightstand. It was barely past 10 in the morning. Anna noticed her hands trembled as she lifted it. Present day, Los Angeles, 2024. Anna stood in the archives room of the Los Angeles County Library. Scrolling through microfilm, headlines flashed past. August 1962. The front page is screaming. Marilyn Monroe dead at 36. Overdose suspected. She remembered the day vividly. She had been the one to answer the phone when the doctor called. She had stood in the living room as police swarmed the house. And she had seen, just for a moment, a figure slipping out to the back gate before the reporters arrived. She'd never told anyone. Not the police. Not the press. Not even the other assistants. Because she had recognized a woman. Someone Marilyn had been meeting in secret for weeks. Anna whispered the name under her breath now. The sound barely audible in the empty archive room. Evelyn Hart. Flashback. July 1962, Beverly Hills Hotel. The pool shimmered under the afternoon sun. Marilyn sat in a private cabana, wearing oversized sunglasses and a wide-brimmed hat. Anna was at a nearby table, pretending to read a magazine. She watched as a tall woman in a navy dress entered the cabana. Evelyn Hart, a name whispered in gossip columns, but never photographed with Marilyn. Evelyn was older, poised, her movements precise. She slid a manila envelope onto the table. Marilyn glanced inside, then quickly closed it. Anna caught the faintest look of fear flicker across Marilyn's face. "Don't worry," Evelyn said, her voice low. "As long as you hold up your end, no one needs to know." Present day, Anna's apartment. The memory sent a chill down Anna's spine. She pulled a shoebox from the closet, rummaging through old photographs and letters, until she found it. A faded snapshot of the Beverly Hills Hotel pool. In the corner, almost out of frame, Evelyn Hart's profile. She turned back to the tape machine. If Marilyn had mentioned Evelyn that night, it might explain everything. Anna rewound the reel and pressed play again. The tape crackled. "There's a woman," Marilyn's voice said softly. "If anything happens to me, she'll know why." Static swallowed the next words. Anna sat frozen, the silence of the room deafening. For the first time in 62 years, Anna realized the truth might still be out there, walking, breathing, maybe even watching her now. She reached for her coat. If Evelyn Hart was still alive, Anna was going to find her. And if she wasn't, maybe someone else had inherited the secrets Marilyn Monroe died to protect. The ghost of Evelyn Hart. The rain had stopped by the time Anna stepped out her apartment. But Los Angeles still felt heavy, as if the air itself was keeping a secret. She tightened her coat around her and started walking toward the corner diner. It wasn't coffee she needed. It was a place to think, to map out her next move. Evelyn Hart. The name alone felt like a locked door in her mind. She had spoken aloud for the first time in decades, and it still carried the same weight it had in 1962. Back then, Evelyn had been a shadow in the corner of every room Marilyn entered. Never announced, never photographed, but always there when the conversations grew quiet and the laughter too forced. Flashback, August 4th, 1962, 3:45 p.m., Brentwood. Anna was in the kitchen rinsing glasses when she heard the front door open. She expected to see the housekeeper returning from errands, but instead, Evelyn Hart stepped inside. She was wearing a dark green dress and a string of pearls. Her lipstick was the same deep crimson as always. Evelyn carried herself like a woman who had never been told no in her life. Marilyn came down the hallway barefoot, a silk scarf in her hair. "You didn't call," she said. Evelyn's voice was low, almost soothing. "I didn't think I needed to." The two women disappeared into the study. Anna couldn't hear their words, but she could hear their tone, sharp, urgent, with moments of silence that felt louder than any argument. When Evelyn left half an hour later, Marilyn's hands were shaking. Present day, Los Angeles, 2024. Anna sat in the diner booth with her laptop open, the glow of the screen reflecting off the rain-speckled window. She searched for Evelyn Hart, expecting nothing. No one that private could be easy to trace. But there she was, or rather, her obituary. Evelyn Hart had died in 1998, survived by a single daughter, Clara Hart, an art dealer now living in New York City. Anna stared at the name. If Marilyn's warning on the tape meant anything, Clara might have inherited not just her mother's estate, but her secrets. She clicked through article after article. Clara's photo appeared, mid-40s, sharp features, expensive taste. There were whispers in the art world about her connections to old Hollywood collections, her dealings with private archives that were never displayed to the public. Anna felt her pulse quicken. It wasn't much, but it was a thread, and she was going to pull it. Flashback, August 4th, 1962, 8:30 p.m., Brentwood. The night was warm, the air heavy with the smell of jasmine from the garden. Marilyn was in her bedroom, a phone cradled between her shoulder and ear. Anna lingered in the hallway, catching fragments of the conversation. "No, I told you I can't, not tonight. Because she was here, that's why. You don't understand. If this gets out, it's not just me." Marilyn's voice trembled, and then she hung up abruptly. She sat on the edge of bed, her robe slipping from one shoulder. Anna could see she was crying, though she tried to hide it. That was the last time Anna saw her alive. Present day, Anna's apartment. Anna poured herself a glass of water, but barely touched it. She had printed out Clara Hart's most recent interview from an art magazine. There was one quote that stopped her cold. "Some things are meant to be seen only by those who can understand them. Not everything belongs in public." It was almost the same thing Evelyn had once told Marilyn by the pool at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Anna set the glass down. Tomorrow, she would be on a flight to New York. She wasn't sure what she'd find, but she knew this. If Clara Hart had inherited her mother's secrets, then somewhere in her world was the missing piece of Marilyn Monroe's final night. And Anna was ready to step into the shadows to get it. The art of secrets. The jet descended into New York under a pale winter sky, the city's jagged skyline cutting into the horizon like a row of black teeth. Anna pressed her forehead to the cold window, her reflection staring back at her, older, sharper, but still carrying the shadow of the girl who had once brought Marilyn Monroe her morning coffee. The name Clara Hart, repeated in her mind like a ticking clock. If Clara had inherited her mother Evelyn's secrets, she might hold the final, unbroken thread to Marilyn's last night. Anna had one meeting scheduled. Clara Hart's gallery, an appointment she had secured by posing as a private collector interested in acquiring unique Hollywood memorabilia. It was a gamble, but one she had no choice but to take. Present day, Clara Hart's gallery, Soho. The gallery was all clean lines and cold light, the walls lined with abstract canvases that seemed to whisper more than they shouted. In the center stood Clara Hart, tailored black suit, hair pulled into a severe chignon, pearl earrings catching the light. "You're punctual," Clara said, her voice smooth, almost disinterested. Collectors rarely are. Anna smiled faintly. Some things are worth being on time for. Clara studied her for a beat longer than polite. "You mentioned an interest in Hollywood history." "Yes," Anna said, keeping her tone casual. "Particularly items that aren't widely known to the public." One of Clara's eyebrows arched, just slightly. "Ah, the dangerous kind of history." Flashback, August 4th, 1962, 9:15 p.m., Brentwood. The bedroom was dim, the only light coming from the lamp on the vanity. Marilyn sat in front of it, not looking at her own reflection, but at a folded piece of paper on the table. Anna stood in the doorway. "Do you need anything before I go?" Anna asked. Marilyn didn't answer right away. Then she picked up the paper, held it for a moment, and slipped it into a drawer. "Just a quiet night," Marilyn said softly. "No phone calls, no visitors." Anna nodded, but as she turned to leave, she caught the sound of the back gate creaking open. Present day, gallery, New York. Clara walked Anna past a row of paintings toward a small office at the back. Inside, the air felt different, warmer, less curated. Books lined the shelves, and in one corner stood a locked glass cabinet. "I've had items cross my path that would shift public perception," Clara said, pouring tea into 2 delicate cups. "The question is, why should I trust you with them?" Anna met her gaze. "Because I'm not the press, and I'm not a buyer looking for a trophy. I'm someone who was there, the night Marilyn died." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Clara leaned back in her chair, her eyes narrowing. Then you already know there are things about that night that will never be printed. Anna chose her words carefully. I know there are things about that night that shouldn't be printed unless they're true. Flashback, August 4th, 1962, 9:45 p.m., Brentwood. The study smelled faintly of bourbon and cigarette smoke. Marilyn was on the phone again, her voice low but urgent. No, I told you she was here. I don't care what you promised me before. If this comes out, it's the end for both of us. She slammed the receiver down, pressed her hands to her temples, and exhaled slowly. Then she picked up the phone again, this time dialing a different number. Anna never knew who she called. She only knew Marilyn's voice softened, almost broke. I just don't want to be alone tonight. Present day, gallery office. Clara sipped her tea, studying Anna over the rim of the cup. My mother, she said finally, kept things, letters, photographs, tapes. Some belonged to friends, some to people who thought they were her friends. Anna's pulse quickened. And Marilyn? Clara set her cup down. There's a box. I haven't opened it in years. But if you want to see it, you'll need to tell me everything you know. Everything. Anna hesitated. Trust was dangerous here, but so was walking away. She leaned forward. Then we'll start with the night I saw your mother leave Marilyn's house, and why I think she was the last person to see her alive. Clara didn't flinch, but Anna saw something shift in her eyes. Not surprise. Recognition. The box. The sound of the key turning in the lock was almost louder than the city noise outside. Clara knelt in front of the glass cabinet in her office, her movements precise, almost ceremonial. Anna stood behind her, her pulse matching the rhythm of the rain against the gallery windows. The cabinet door swung open, revealing a single wooden box, dark oak, the grain worn smooth from years of handling. No label, no markings, just a faint scent of cedar and something older, almost metallic. Clara lifted it carefully, setting it on the desk between them. My mother kept this in a locked trunk until the day she died, she said. I've opened it twice. Both times I wished I hadn't. Anna's gaze didn't waver. Then why open it now? Clara studied her for a moment, then flipped the brass latch. Inside, the contents were arranged with meticulous care. A bundle of photographs tied with red ribbon, a stack of folded letters, and, resting at the bottom, a small reel-to-reel tape. Its label faded but still legible. Anna's breath caught. She recognized the handwriting instantly. Marilyn Monroe. Flashback, August 4th, 1962, 10:15 p.m., Brentwood. Marilyn sat at her vanity, pen in hand, writing on a single sheet of cream-colored paper. The house was too quiet. Even the usual hum of the refrigerator seemed distant. She paused, staring at the words, then crossed something out. Anna, sitting on the bed behind her, watched silently. You look like you're writing a speech, Anna said gently. Marilyn smiled without looking up. Maybe I am, or maybe it's just something for my eyes. Her voice lingered on those last two words, the same phrase Anna had seen on the label of the tape she found in her own apartment. A sudden knock at the back door made both women jump. Marilyn glanced at Anna. Can you get that? Tell them I'm not. No, never mind. I'll handle it. Anna hesitated, but Marilyn's tone left no room for argument. When she returned, the door to the study was closed. Present day, Clara's gallery office. Clara untied the ribbon around the photographs, fanning them out across the desk. Most were candid shots. Marilyn by the pool, Marilyn laughing with friends, Marilyn in the back seat of a car with sunglasses covering half her face. But then came the one that made Anna's stomach turn. It was taken in Marilyn's Brentwood garden. She was standing beside Evelyn Hart. The angle suggested it was shot from a distance, without their knowledge. Marilyn's smile was tight, Evelyn's expression unreadable. That was 2 days before she died, Clara said softly. My mother told me she went there to settle something. She didn't say what. Anna's fingers trembled as she reached for the reel-to-reel tape. Have you listened to this? Clara shook her head. Once. Years ago, I stopped after a minute. Why? Clara met her eyes. Because I heard someone else in the room with her. A man's voice. Flashback. August 4th, 1962, 11:05 p.m., Brentwood. The study light spilled into the hallway. Marilyn was speaking in low tones, her voice muffled by the heavy oak door. Then came another voice, male, deep controlled. You know this can't get out. Not now. Not ever. Marilyn's reply was sharper than Anna had ever heard. I don't owe you my silence anymore. A pause. The sound of glass breaking. Then silence. Present day. Clara's gallery office. Anna stared at the tape as if it might answer every question she'd carried for 62 years. I need to hear it, she said. Clara hesitated, then reached into the desk drawer and pulled out a portable tape player. The machine whirred to life, the reels turning. At first, only the familiar hiss of tape. Then Marilyn's voice, soft but steady. If anything happens to me, it won't be by my own hand. A long pause. Then, faintly, a man's voice. Careful what you say, sweetheart. Anna felt the hair on her arm stand up. She knew that voice. She had heard it once before on the phone, the night Marilyn died. She looked at Clara. I think I know who this is. Clara's eyes narrowed. Then you understand, this isn't just a story. It's dangerous. The voice. The tape hissed and crackled, the sound like distant rain. Marilyn's voice filled the room again, calm, but edged with something brittle, like glass about to shatter. I've kept your secrets for years, but I won't anymore. Then came the man's reply, quiet but laced with warning. You don't want to make enemies in high places. Anna sat frozen, her hand tightening on the armrest. That voice was unmistakable. She had heard it once, on a summer night in 1962, coming through a telephone receiver in Marilyn's Brentwood home. A man who didn't knock. He was simply there. A man the press would have never dared to connect to her. She didn't say his name aloud. Not yet. But in her mind, the letters formed with chilling clarity. Flashback. August 4th, 1962, 11:20 p.m., Brentwood. The study door was still closed. Anna sat in the kitchen, trying to ignore the low rumble of voices. She poured herself a glass of water, the clink of ice against glass masking the muffled argument down the hall. Then she heard a sharp thud. The house went silent. Anna set the glass down, walking slowly toward the study. Before she reached it, the door opened. The man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, his face half in shadow. He glanced at her, and in that split second, she knew two things. She wasn't supposed to see him, and she would never forget his voice. He walked out the back door, without a word. Inside, Marilyn was sitting at the desk, staring at the papers in front of her. She looked up at Anna and smiled, tired, resigned. Everything's fine, she said, but her hands were trembling. Present day, Clara's gallery office. Anna's breathing had quickened. She pressed pause on the tape. I know who he is, she said. Clara's eyes narrowed. And you think saying his name out loud is a good idea? Anna didn't answer. Instead, she rewound the tape a few seconds, listening again. The weight of those words, high places, wasn't lost on her. In 1962, that phrase didn't mean Hollywood executives. It meant politics, power, Washington. Clara leaned forward. If this is what you think it is, you need to understand, people have buried less dangerous things for decades. And they'll bury you too if you try to drag this into the light. Flashback, August 5th, 1962, 12:05 a.m., Brentwood. The house was unervingly still. Anna lay awake in the guest room, every creak of the wooden floorboards amplified in the silence. She heard the faint click of the back gate, the rustle of footsteps in the garden. Then, a single phone ring from the master bedroom. She got up, moving down the hall. The door was ajar. Marilyn was on the phone, her voice quiet, but each word deliberate. I just want you to know, I'm not afraid anymore. A pause. No, I won't stay quiet. Not this time. When she hung up, she looked almost peaceful. She crossed the room, closed the French doors, and drew the curtains. That was the last time Anna saw her alive. Present day, Clara's gallery office. Anna turned to Clara. This tape, it's more than proof. It's a motive if this man's name ever connected to Marilyn's death. Clara cut her off. It won't. You think this is about justice. But for people like him, justice doesn't exist. Only damage control. Anna stood, the tape in her hand. Then maybe it's time someone stopped protecting him. Clara's gaze hardened. Be careful. My mother used to say, secrets like this are buried with teeth. If you try to dig them up, they bite back. Anna walked out into the cold New York night, the city lights blurring in her vision. She knew Clara was right. This was dangerous. But the truth had been locked away for 62 years, and she wasn't going to let it die in the dark. For the first time in decades, she had the proof, and now she had a name. The name in the dark. The New York Public Library Special Collections room was as silent as a church. Anna sat at a long oak table, surrounded by folders stamped restricted in red ink. It had taken 3 days of paperwork, 2 phone calls to old contacts in the LAPD, and 1 risky lie to get in here. She slid on a pair of cotton gloves and opened the first folder, Los Angeles County Coroner's Office, August 5th, 1962. Most of it was familiar. The official time of death, the toxicology report, the list of prescription bottles found at Marilyn's bedside. But in the back, buried in an addendum marked internal use only, was something she'd never seen. A single page. A statement from Officer James Weller, one of the first responders. Upon arrival at 4:35 a.m., I was informed by the housekeeper that a male individual had visited the residence the night prior. Description: Caucasian, approximate 6 feet 2 inches, late 40s, dark hair, entered through back entrance. No record departure, noted in guest logs. Anna felt her pulse in her ears. She knew that description, and the initials at the bottom, JW, matched the officer she had spoken to only once, decades ago, who told her there was more to that night than we were allowed to say. Flashback, August 4th, 1962, 11:55 p.m., Brentwood. Anna was in the kitchen, rinsing a glass, when she heard the back door open again. The man entered without knocking. His shoes were polished, his suit tailored, but his face was set in the kind of calm that comes from holding power. Marilyn met him in the hallway. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "We need to talk." They walked toward the study, the door closing softly behind them. Anna moved closer, just enough to hear fragments. "Marilyn, I'm not your problem to solve anymore. Man, you're everyone's problem if you open your mouth." Then silence. Present-day library. Anna scribbled a description in her notebook. She knew she needed more. She requested another set of files. Brentwood Station, August 1962. Telephone records. It took 2 hours, but when the clerk finally wheeled out the box, Anna's breath caught. Inside was a typed log of outgoing and incoming calls from Marilyn's residence. The final outgoing call was at 12:02 a.m. The number was partially blacked out, but the area code 202 wasn't. Washington, D.C. Her hand shook as she traced the digits. Only one person Marilyn had spoken to in the last year had that connection. The same man whose voice was on Clara's tape. The same man in Officer Weller's report. Anna didn't write his name in her notes. She couldn't risk it on paper. Flashback, August 5th, 1962, 12:20 a.m., Brentwood. Marilyn sat alone at her vanity, the curtains drawn tight. She lit a cigarette, inhaling deeply, her reflection pale in the mirror. On the desk behind her, the phone was off the hook, the cord twisted. The sound of a car engine idled outside, then faded. She closed her eyes for a moment, exhaling a long, slow breath. When she opened them, she reached for the folded paper she had been writing earlier. But before she could pick up the pen, there was a faint knock at the French doors. Present-day New York streets. Anna stepped out of the library into the gray afternoon. The city felt sharper, the air colder. She walked 3 blocks before realizing she was being followed. A man in a charcoal overcoat, sunglasses despite the overcast sky, kept pace half a block behind her. She ducked into a coffee shop, watching through the window as he stopped outside, lit a cigarette, and waited. He wasn't a reporter. He wasn't random. He was there for her. Her phone buzzed. No caller ID. She answered anyway. A deep voice came through the line, the same voice from the tape. "You've been busy, Miss Clark." Stop digging. The dead have earned their silence. The line went dead. Anna sat frozen, the world around her suddenly muffled. The proof was in her hands now, witness statements, phone logs, the tape, but so was the danger. She wasn't just chasing history anymore. She was walking straight into the same shadow Marilyn had never escaped. The last hour. The city outside Anna's hotel window was alive with yellow cabs and neon signs, but in her room, the air felt still, thick with the weight of what she carried. On the bed lay the evidence. The reel-to-reel tape, the photocopies of police statements, the phone log with the Washington area code circled in red. The man's voice still echoed in her head. Stop digging. The dead have earned their silence. She poured herself a glass of water, but it stayed untouched. For 62 years, the truth of that night had been buried in whispers and rumors. Now, for the first time, she had the whole picture. Flashback. August 4th, 1962, 11:55 p.m., Brentwood. Marilyn stood at the French doors in her bedroom, the night air brushing against her bare shoulders. The study light was still on, casting a rectangle of gold across the lawn. She could see her reflection in the glass. Hair perfectly set, makeup softer than her public face, a silk robe cinched loosely at her waist. A knock at the back gate broke the quiet. She opened it without hesitation. The man stepped inside. His presence filled the small garden, his tailored suit catching the moonlight. "You shouldn't have called me," he said. Marilyn closed the gate. "And you shouldn't be here." But here we are. They walked inside together. Present day, hotel room. Anna sat on the bed, the tape in her hands. She could take it to a journalist she trusted. She could leak it anonymously. She could upload it for the whole world to hear by morning. She imagined the headlines, new evidence in Marilyn Monroe's death, the debates, the documentaries, the endless analysis. But she also imagined the man's power, how easily he could destroy reputations, careers, lives. Even from the grave, the reach of his name would cast a long shadow. Flashback, August 5th, 1962, 12:15 a.m., Brentwood. The study door was ajar now. Marilyn sat at her desk, the folded paper in front of her. The man stood behind her, one hand resting on the back of her chair. "Marilyn, I'm done keeping quiet. I've lived enough lies for 3 lifetimes. Man, if you walk out that door with this, you won't live another day." Her hand hesitated over the paper. Then she picked up the pen. Anna, in the hallway, took a step forward, but the phone rang sharp and sudden. Marilyn answered it. Her voice softened. "Yes, I'll see you soon." When she hung up, the man was gone. Present day, hotel room. Anna threaded the tape onto the old player she had carried with her. She pressed play. Marilyn's voice filled the room, intimate, vulnerable. "If you're hearing this, it means I didn't get to say goodbye. I want you to know it wasn't an accident, and it wasn't what they'll say it was. I've been silenced before, but this time I fought." The sound of a knock, then a pause. Marilyn's voice drops to a whisper. "He's here." Static. The tape ends. Anna sat motionless. She knew that if she released this, it would change history, but it would also ignite a fire she might not survive. She picked up her phone and dialed. The line rang once before a familiar voice answered. An old friend in the press. "This is Anna Clark," she said quietly. "I have something you need to hear." Her thumb hovered over the end call button. Her eyes drifted to the city outside, the lights flickering like camera flashes. Then she ended the call without speaking. She packed the tape back into its case, locking it in her suitcase. The truth would not die, but it wouldn't live today either. Anna turned off the light, the city's glow spilling through the curtains. Somewhere in the dark, Marilyn's voice still lingered. Not the star, not the scandal, but the woman. "I just don't want to be alone tonight." And Anna whispered into the silence, "You're not." Fade out. Slow swell of strings over a single spotlight on an empty stage. The faint click of a camera's shutter and the sound of distant applause.